that you love the game more than I do, it's simply like, hey, you gotta take a step back and say like, hey, let me take a deep breath. Let me marinate this for a second. What just happened?
Yeah.
You know, no, we're not doing that. So the burnout is just you're burning yourself out. Coaches go from season to season. Parents go from fall to spring, from spring to fall, just like that. Players don't seem to take time off. So it's almost like a repetitive thing that just keeps going. So nobody ever gets better.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Clearing the Bases, the podcast where we step up to the plate and dive deep into the world of youth baseball. I'm your host, Jimmy Filangieri. You know, on this show, we discuss all things related to the preparation and development of youth baseball players, coaches, and yes, even parents. So sit back, settle in, and get ready to hear from some of the greatest baseball minds out there.
The games don't even get to that point. So the game, you never really play a high-level situation. So how can you expect a kid who has never been in the sixth inning with a time run at third base and you're playing shortstop, you gotta make the rookie play? Because there's pressure to it. Like, look, like anybody says, oh, there's no pressure. You're lying. That's not even remotely true. Like, there's always pressure, but they don't never get to expose that thing. You know, and then if you suggest that, hey, like, why is the championship game not well? Because, you know, this can't happen. I mean, we got to pay the umpires more money, the city needs more money, everybody needs more money. So going back to the original thing that we talked about, like, everything's become monetized. Like, everything just is about the dollar, everything's the money.
You know, to be able to reach the highest levels of this game, yeah, you got to work hard. You got to get in the cages. You got to do your strength and conditioning. You know, you got to throw your bullpens. There's all of this physical stuff that you need to do, and you need to work hard at it. But don't forget that you also have to get better at the mental side of the game. And one of the ways you can do that is increase baseball IQ by downloading and using the 6-Tool app.
For baseball coaches like you, every game brings measurable progress. However, game time isn't the time for trial and error learning. Instead, have a proactive approach. Use 6-Tool, the best baseball player development tool on the market. We provide a platform to level up your coaching strategy by helping you to quickly identify and address your players' knowledge of the game. By using our easy-to-implement interactive player quizzes, you can assess position-specific issues, overall baseball IQ, and much more. Win more games and develop better overall baseball players with effective off-the-field training. Visit us at 6-tool.com. 6-Tool. Get ahead in the game.
You know, everybody, we always talk about social media and we all talk about the problems that are associated with social media. But I got to tell you something. Social media can be one of the best things out there, and I'm going to tell you why. Our next guest wrote an article that I found on social media. I loved it, and I said to myself, you know, I got to get this guy on the show. Well, I don't think it was maybe an hour later when I get an instant message from the guy that wrote it, and we started talking on Facebook, and then we had a phone call, and the rest is history. But, you know, that just goes to show you that social media can be a great thing if it's used the right way. So tonight we have Victor Burgos. He wrote an article about travel baseball that I tell you caught my attention. He is a former hitting instructor for the New York Mets, and he works in youth development baseball. He works in all types of baseball development. And, you know, Victor, it's a pleasure to have you on. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I mean, especially after I read your article. I mean, you know, I've been screaming from the mountaintops about this type of stuff. And when I read your article, I swear, I mean, I even said it when I reposted it on social media. I said, I didn't write this, but I should have, because they were the same thoughts that I have.
Yeah, originally, I started writing this articles about a month ago. I wanted to, I wanted to write my philosophy, and I wanted to mean something, and I wanted to look professional. So I kind of just stumbled upon Medium, and I started writing, and then when I started placing it on LinkedIn, and original, all my articles were based about hitting, just simply just about the process, the mental game. How can, if I was a hitting coach, how would I be able to fix some of these guys? Those sort of things. And, you just kind of, just like a regular day, you just sit on Facebook and you start wandering and start reading some of these comments and start reading some of this chit chat and you just kind of like, man, like, hey, what's going on? So one thing led to another, and I was like, I was up at 4 in the morning still writing, and I was like, man, that's like. So what was funny was that I actually sent it to a mutual friend, like a friend of ours here in the family. Our kids, they're the same age, and she's a former softball coach at here at high school, and she said I sent it to her, and like, and I sent a message to her husband, and I said, hey, would you mind telling your wife that I sent something to her? And by the time that he responded, she already answered all these questions. And I was like, oh, this is ready to go. But yeah, I didn't know that it was gonna hit like this. I'm glad it did. It sparked a lot of good conversations over the last 48 hours. So uh,
Well, I got to
I'm
tell you
saying,
that I got to tell you that that actually proves the point that, this is something that we need to talk about and we need to bring to the forefront because it's an issue. And, this just proves that by you putting out there and you're getting all of that traction. That's fantastic.
yes, yes, and it's an issue on all fronts. No, I don't think there's nobody here that can take the full blame for it. I think that parents can take some of the blame. I think organizations can take some of the blame. I think tournament directors, I don't even tournament directors, maybe in sort of way, players, but there's all sorts of things that got to get better. I mean, all sorts of things.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. So, I mean, you know what? Let's start here because this is where, to me, where it all starts. Okay, where youth baseball became monetized, where it became a business. I've said a million times that the current travel ball landscape is a business model. It is not a development model. What do you think?
Absolutely. And look, and no disrespect to anybody that wants to make money. Look, any, there's a demand out there. Be my guest. I just think that you got to be upfront about the things that you're trying to do, right? Like there's ways that you go about it. When you are a coach and you're late to practice because you have 4 lessons, that seems to be a problem. And all of a sudden now parents are the ones coaching practice. That's a problem. Um, uh, there's all sorts of agendas out there for everybody, and organizations that have multiple teams just to make a rent. That seems to be a problem. Not in the sense of like, hey, anybody should play, but in the sense of like, look, like, what are you really trying to accomplish here? Like, is it more based on the numbers of teams you have, or are we really trying to set up a program? Are we really trying to set up a program? And like I said, there's nobody here to blame. I think everybody's at fault. Um, I'm in this business. I do private lessons here locally in the DFW area. So I'm making money off of it. But even that, like, even at this point, like even some of the normal lesson model, I don't think is I don't think it's great. I guess I can say like one week, I don't do anything the rest of the week. I come back next week and I'll do it all over again. Just yeah.
But I want to jump in for a second because here's the thing, and this is what bothers me. If you go to a restaurant, right, and let's say you want a steak, and you go to a restaurant and you buy a steak and you get a beautiful steak, potatoes, vegetable, and everything, you have a great meal. Okay. You don't mind paying for it because you got, what
Mhm.
you wanted. Okay.
Yes.
What I see a lot is number one, okay, most of the and I'll say I'll blame this on the parents. Most of the parents do not know what development looks like, and it's not their fault. Okay, they just don't know. So they go with an organization that plays a million games, doesn't practice a lot. Okay, and the players are getting by on their natural talent, and yeah, they may be winning, they may be having a great time, and all that stuff. That's fantastic, but the kids aren't learning anything. So you're paying all of this money for them to go play games, which is not helping them. That's where I start to have the problem.
Well, you have to have a sales pitch, right? Like everybody sales pitch the same thing, right? Like, hey, we're here to get your kid better, and look, and we're here to for you to learn, for you to have fun. Um, the sales pitch of 12 of you is, hey, we're gonna go to Cooperstown. Um, those things. I know for a fact. I know for a fact that there are parents that I know that have joined teams simply because they're going to Cooperstown. They don't care. They don't care about development. I say, oh, the team's going to Cooperstown. I was like, okay. So I mean, so yeah, in that sense, yes, you're right. That you got to blame parents for that. I say, and look, here's what I tell people: if that's what you're looking for, then okay, no problem. But if that's not what you're looking for and you still sign up, then don't go online and start complaining.
Yes, that's
Don't go online and start complaining.
yeah, yeah,
Because you signed that contract, you made that commitment to that team. It is your fault to do. It is your to do the diligence to, hey, let me do the homework. You know,
yeah,
because
yeah.
there's money being spent. I mean, look, we're in times right now that like, hey, $2,000, $2,500 for a year, a season. I mean, that's not like, hey, let me just pull it out of the tree and just here and pay. There's people that like, hey, that's a commitment for them. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, if you're paying that money and you're not getting anything for it, and again, I'm going to go to what you said in your article when you talked about the game within the game is gone. Okay. I blame a lot of that on travel baseball because they're playing way too many games. Nobody is teaching them how to play the game. Okay. So you're paying all of this money, but you're really not getting anything for it.
Um, no, and look, quite frankly, it, you you I talk to a lot of coaches all the time throughout the day, and one of the things that they feel like, look, they feel undervalued. Okay, that's fine, but they found a system that they felt like, hey, I can actually make a living off of this. So when they look at Johnny and they look at the next door guy and they see, hey, he's making this amount of money, well, man, why am I making that kind of money? So the discouragement is there, and organization leaders, administrators, or the owner, or like, managers, or whatever the case is that you got to become problem solvers, and you got to find a way to, hey, what do you want to do? Like, hey, is your goal to be here? If you to go to college, is your goal, because at least the communication is there, right? So you know the expectations, and like, hey, how much are you looking to make? Um, those things start like those questions are not being asked. I got offered. I remember when I got let go from the Mets. I got offered a job here in the local a local organization, and they offered me $500 to become a head coach. I was like, man, I can't. I'm sorry. I say, look, I don't want to sound disrespectful, but like, I say, you expect me to spend weekends, Saturday and Sunday, on a field for $125 a weekend plus 2 days of practice, in which I got to drive an hour and 10 minutes of practice? That don't quite make sense.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, again, like you had mentioned, in the article, baseball IQ gone. Cutoff responsibilities missed. I can tell you that with cutoff responsibilities, this was great. I was watching a local travel organization. They posted them doing their winter workouts, and they were doing a cutoff relay. And I'm watching now. This is posted on social media, and I'm watching this, and I'm saying these kids aren't receiving the cut, right? They're not doing anything that they're supposed to be doing right, and there's no coach out there correcting them. This is where I have the problem. Like, we're not, situational awareness. You mentioned it, okay? Approach at the plate. We have to teach our kids this stuff.
And look at and the one part that I throughout this process, like this, let's just call it this past year. I've been a little bit more involved in youth. I've been involved in high school. I was working in some high school teams, so I was able to go to more games. And the one area that I feel that it's like really lacking is high leverage time, high leverage of like situation. But if you go back to the way these kids were brought up, the games don't even get to that point. So the game, you never really play a high level situation. So how can you expect a kid who has never been in the sixth inning with a time run at third base and you're playing shortstop, you gotta make the routine play? Because there's pressure to that. Like, look, like anybody says, "Oh, there's no pressure." You're lying. That's not even remotely true. Like, there's always pressure, but they don't never get to expose that thing, And then if you suggested, hey, like, why is the championship game not well? Because this can't happen. I mean, we got to pay the umpires more money. The city needs more money. Everybody needs more money. So going back to the original thing that we talked about, like everything's become monetized. Like everything just it's about the dollar. Everything's the money. And I was like, oh, okay. So look, I asked a question yesterday um, to a director, and I asked him, what would it take to get an athletic trainer at the facility and every event? And quite frankly, the answer was okay. I'm not saying that he wasn't opposed to it, but then he was like, well, they're gonna have to deal with minor cuts, and all of a sudden it becomes like boo-boo baseball. And I was like, well, but we got to take care of health, right? So health is becoming an issue, right? So arms got to become an issue. So you, as a coach, you're going based on what the players say, right? And your gut feeling is, hey, man, if your arm's hurting, you got to get out, right? But when you have a professional in there that can non-biased, that can make decisions, now it's just like, hey, I'm covering myself. Hey, I'm sorry, but we just got to do what's best for. But it's not. I mean, it's not. At the end of the day, tournament directors, and like I said earlier, they're in it to make money. And like, quite frankly, all they do is provide a system, provide the field, provide umpires. It's your fault, man. It's not my fault that you threw your kid 200 pitches and he has to get Tommy John surgery. So.
I mean, I had it this year. I had a freshman and a sophomore. The freshman actually had the surgery in season, and the sophomore is having the surgery done now that the season is over. They're young kids. They're babies, 14 and 15 years old, but they were abused so much because I talked to their parents and I said, let me guess. I said they were playing on a travel team. They threw them Friday. They threw them Sunday. They threw them as much as they possibly could because they needed to win some stupid trophy, which doesn't mean anything. And now this poor kid has got to go for arm surgery. What are we doing?
Yeah, like and we can sit here all day and talk about examples. I know for that at my son's age, he's going into 13 years. I know I've met a few parents and I'm obviously the more you're involved in the system, you start meeting parents and even from different teams or whatnot. And I know for a fact there's kids that I've thrown every weekend, at least 100 pitches every weekend the last 2 years during the season. I mean, I know for a fact. You can and I was like, look, you go to that team's game changer and go look at that man. Wow, it's there every weekend. And you're like, man, and look, and parents are like, oh, just give him some time, he'll be fine. I was like, dude, what? Like, come on, man, like, nah, and to be honest, somebody got to put a stop. Like I was like, we decided like that we're not in a rush to place our kid on a team. Like, what's the point of paying for a team when my son's not going to get better? Like I was like, and even like, oh, well, he gets rep. Well, what difference does it make if you don't have reps? There's no teaching moments during the reps. Now at that point, what's the difference, right? What's the difference? That's the case. I can take them. I can rent the park, and I can just go out there and hit them ground balls, and I'll shoot, and I'll put a clock and say, hey, get it under 3 seconds, or whatever the case may be. That's high leverage. Same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. But you see that's the problem too, is that most people, okay, and again, I'm not talking about the guys that are doing it right, because there are guys out there that I know are doing it really
Absolutely.
good.
Absolutely.
I'm talking about the people that don't do it right. And, most people don't know what development is. So the average parent doesn't know, they think, well, I put my son on ABC travel team, and you know what? They won 3 tournaments this year. Their record was, 30 wins and 4 losses. They're really good baseball players. Well, not necessarily. Okay.
Yeah.
They could be, okay, but when they get to the high school level, and I see it all the time, do they know how to run the bases? Do they know, like we talked about before, to receive a cut? Do they know the right routes to take to the ball in the outfield? Do they know how to feel? All of this stuff, do they know how to do it correctly? Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of it's like, like we have a really good 13-year-old team here. Like, when I mean really good, I'm talking about like it's the national rank. I'm not quite sure how many guys are from the area. Majority are. Um, but there you have it. It's like, look, like, can you get these players into the next level? Like, if not, then that's fine. You're just here to win it, right? So you're in your what they call your 15 minutes of fame, and then once you run out, then like, what are you gonna do, right? So it, it's just kind of a cycle, man, and it sucks that it got to that point, and me, quite frankly, I know that I'm 6 years away from being done, so I do hope that I'm able to see coming back, but also I'm realistic, and I'm like, yeah, by the time my kid leaves, it's probably it's probably the point, because guess what's coming? Like, NIL are coming to high school, so it's just a matter of time before they're making their way to youth sports. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
The competition is like, for example, here in Texas now they pass out the law in which you get an X amount of dollars, either you're homeschool or private school. So a lot of this perform like athletes are, that's a route they're going to take. That's an option now, that they're able to, hey, go to private school, they're able to go to homeschool, like, and they're able to dedicate their day on baseball. And like, look, like, I was like, it's an advantage. It's an advantage. There's guys like us that we're working class people. We got to send our kids to school. That's like, and it's an advantage to a lot of those guys. And I mean, there's things that are coming that I'm a little worried of how it's gonna, especially the NIL money. I think the NIL money is gonna make its way to youth at some point. And at that point, man, you talk about parents that now can imagine them at that point when they're asking for $1 million for their kid. I was like, yeah. I was like, come on.
Yeah. And I mean, I agree with you. I mean, the lunacy, yeah, it could get to that. I mean, I wouldn't, I mean, I would be shocked, but I wouldn't be shocked. You know what I mean? In other words, all of the nonsense that I've seen, a lot of the stuff that I see now, I thought would never happen.
Going to some of the things that you were talking about, how some of the lack of IQ, the awareness approach. We as young coaches, and I'm gonna share I'm gonna share a story with you in just a minute, and then but young coaches are no longer feel that asking an older coach with years of experience is no longer a value to them. Like, they feel like, hey, I can do it. So the point I'm trying to make behind this is that we paved the way for you guys. We coach some of you guys. So it's okay for you to ask us, how can we run a practice? You know, how do you develop certain characteristics? And they're just not there. Like this young coaches feel like, hey, they don't feel that experience is no longer a value. You know, I remember when I was with the Mets, I remember that. I remember I just got back. Like, the way I got when I went to the Mets, it was kind of like how my year got started. I went to the DR, and from the DR I went for 2 weeks to the academy, and then I came home, and then 2 days later I went to a camp in Florida. So I kind of like I was flying back and forth, and then I came home, and then I came and got my car, and then I drove back to Port St. Lucie. And I remember I got there, and I saw Buck Showalter at the time. He was a manager at the time, and like to me, it was like, man, like how much can I soak in this 10 or 15 minutes that I'm gonna get to talk to this guy? Like how much information can I soak? And it's no longer there. Like guys don't think that way. Like guys think that they have it figured out. And at the youth level, like you there's levels to this. There's levels to this, and everybody feel like I can coach the national team, or they feel like they can coach major teams. But man, take a double A player, earn your strike. Take a double A player, see if you can make them better. We don't do that anymore. We just don't. And then there you have it. So why is there a problem? Is because we given this elite group of kids to kids themselves that don't know how to run a practice. They don't want the help, but yet they want to get paid the amount of money they want to get paid. Yeah. So I'm like, dude, like, I was like, that's like, it's just not gonna work.
Well, I mean, I've seen exactly what you're talking about. And again, I think that the reason that kind of thing happens is an organization will get 12 teams, right? Before they get those 12 teams, they never thought about who the hell's going to coach them. Okay. Mm-hmm. So once they have, oh my God, I got all of these players. Okay. You know what? I'll grab this guy, I'll grab that guy. And like you said, they may not know how to run a practice. I've seen it. I've seen young guys coaching teams, and I'd go to their practice and they'd be sitting on a bucket. And you want to see me lose my mind? Sit on a bucket while you're supposed to be coaching.
Yeah, you've seen it. We've seen it all around. And look, we're a baseball family. I was a coach before my son. When my son was born, I just finished playing my career. Like my playing career was over. So my wife and I my first team that I had, I was able to be with them from 13 throughout. I took them from 13 and on. And it became a family for us. And they're just not there anymore. That's just not there. The jumping from team to team so long it's a free agent market out there basically. Like, hey, what can you do for me? Where are you going? How much money can you give me on a discount? It's crazy out there, man. It's really crazy, and I feel bad. I feel bad for those kids who are 5 or 6 that they're going to be, by the time that we get out, like they're going to be coming up to the system, and they're like, where are they going to be at? And it's a shame that this is where we are, but I'm hopeful. Like I said, I'm hopeful that some of this people like yourself and myself, and like I said earlier, there's good guys here in Texas and good guys all over the nation trying to do it right. They're trying to do it right. They're trying to do it right by kids. They want the best for their kids. Unfortunately, it's just going to take more of us.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing too, I agree with you, because even in this area, we have guys that do it right. We have guys that are really good with kids. And, we need, like you said, we need guys like you and me that are going to shout from the mountaintops, hey, this has got to change. And I think, we talked about My Evolution Baseball, where it's totally different. This is not what a typical travel team does. We're going to practice 3 times a week, and we'll play a game on the weekend. Then we'll practice 3, and maybe the next weekend we might play 2 games, and then we'll go back. The games is all they are a tool for us coaches to see if what we're teaching in practice is translating into the game, and if it's not, go back and work on it again.
Well, think about how many kids in the DR. Like, when do they actually play their first game ever? Like, what, 13, 14 before they actually see a game? They're constantly training. They're constantly in the weight room. And that was another thing. The fall. Like, when did the fall became a regular season? A fall was never like. I'm telling you right now. I remember 2000. Man, 2008, 2009 that I was still playing, but I was coming home and helping out some teams. I don't even think like the umpire will even care. Like, hey, you need a lineup? No, I don't. Like, it was that like if fall was a free, hey, like, hey, as long as you bat you guys in order, I don't care if they're wearing a jersey. I don't care. Like, it was really a true development. All of a sudden, like now it's like just as important. Like I was like, man, this fall season, and when do you ever get better? Like, as a player, I ask this question for these three people. As a player, when do you get better? When do you ever, as a parent, when do you digest and just say, I need some time off? And as a coach, when do you ever evaluate yourself if you ever going from season to season and you never ask yourself, where do I got to get better? That was one thing that I did the year when I got home. I took a few days because I needed to just kind of like let myself breathe and then just like, man, like this was intense. 132 games every day. You're dealing with personality. You're dealing with guys that are trying to get out of A-ball. It's a lot. It's a lot. And then when you look into the youth sports, because most of the guys that are doing this for a living are doing it daily, right? They do lessons, then they go practice on Monday, Wednesday, or through the Thursday. So they're constantly on a baseball field. Man, at some point you gotta like, look, I just gotta, and there's no shot at anybody or like that you love the game more than I do. It's simply like, hey, you gotta take a step back and say like, hey, let me take a deep breath. Let me marinate this for a second. What just happened?
Yeah.
No, we're not doing that no more. So the burnout is just you're burning yourself out. Coaches go from season to season. Parents go from fall to spring, from spring to fall, and just like that. Players don't seem to take time off. So it's almost like a repetitive thing that just keeps going. So nobody ever gets better. Nobody ever gets better.
Yeah.
We built a little gym at our house. We bought some of the weights they need to, and I'm not saying it's a top of the line gym. It's just enough to do the things we have to. Man, my son hasn't touched a baseball in 3 weeks, and it's just every day in that weight room. And it's just like, look, it's like, there's times for that. You have to be there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about it many times that, and again, I know that I'm 800 years old, and when I played, youth baseball, it was totally different. That was back in, the 70s. It was a long time ago. But, when the baseball season was over, we moved on to something else, whether it be football, basketball, whatever it was. And then we had that hunger. When the spring came around the next year, we were hungry. We wanted to get out there. We wanted to play.
Yeah.
The kids get complacent nowadays because they never stop doing it.
Mm-hmm. And look, and I'm gonna piggyback to some of what you said and some of what I said. I like, how do we get better? Like, how do you get better?
Yeah.
Like yes, I do understand that some people believe the more you play, you play better competition, you get better, but there's gotta be teachable moments. There's got to be teachable moments in which you sit down, and it don't necessarily have to be a conversation about what just happened in the game. A conversation how you take care of your body. A conversation how you go about your day, schoolwork. There's all sorts of conversations that are going to lead to how I become a better person and then how I become a better ball player. And that's what people don't understand. Like, it's like the student athlete, right? The concept, right? It's in becoming athlete student. No, student athlete. You are a student first, and in my house, you know, we've tried. We're very disciplined in my house, and here, if you don't get your crap together, like baseball or dancing for my little girl or anything, it's easily taken away. Like, it's not like we don't have issues taking that away because you gotta be here. You're here first. You gotta be a son. You gotta take care of the stuff here because baseball is a privilege. You gotta understand, like, you're privileged to play this game. You're not You're not. This is not a birthright. You didn't just know. You're lucky that your parents can spend money to put you in sports, to give you that opportunity to do some extracurricular. So it's a privilege, not a right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, all of those things that you mentioned, again, I don't feel that for the most part that the players in travel baseball are not getting what you just talked about. They're not getting that discipline. They're not getting all of those intangibles, all of those things that have nothing to do with baseball, but we know is very important for those players to learn. They're not getting that from the travel baseball because is all that coach is interested in is who are my best players that I could put out there to win this tournament this weekend. That's it. That's all they're
And for
teaching.
what? A $3 ring.
Right.
A $3 ring with a $15 banner, so you can take a Sunday picture, so you can show off to your coworkers on Monday. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
Yeah.
And in previous articles, when I talk about them during my leagues, I talk about, like, we got guys in youth ball that had $500 bats, $400 bats, but they can't hit a curveball. And then they call themselves major players, but you can hit a curveball. Same thing in the minors. I got guys that can tell you my scapulary, X, Y, whatever angle to the power of pi, whatever the case may be. But they can't hit a fastball than that thing they were running score position. So, like, dude, you ain't going nowhere, bro. Go look at those numbers, man. You ain't going nowhere. And I tell my son all the time, I say, look, I'm gonna tell you right here, dude. As good as you are as a hitter, which he is a good hitter, you better come clutch in the seventh. You better come clutch with hitters scoring position. That's the people that go out. Anybody can hit a double when there's nobody on. Right. Hit a double when you're down 2 runs with running second and third and 2 outs. And the guy who throws the hardest. That's when you become that's a real baller right there. Yeah. And that's the thing, Jimmy, this is the one thing. There's no more dogs out there. There's no more dogs. Like, those kids are just not hungry because what you said. Because we're getting complacent because we play all year long. And we play all year. So just another weekend we lost. So we'll be back next weekend. Yeah. But there's not that hungry no more. And guess what happened? When you're not hungry, you no longer want to get better. You no longer want to hit that weight room. You no longer want to get the extra cut. But you want those flashy new batting gloves, and you want those Jordan cleats. They cost $200 and some dollars.
Yeah.
But you don't want to put the work.
I could not agree with you more. I mean, my players know, number one, I don't want to see eye black on your face. Okay. I don't want to see it. Okay. I don't want to see an oven mitt in your back pocket. I don't want to see your glasses up on the brim of your hat. All right. You want to look cool, go somewhere else and do that. Okay. I'm looking for what you said. I want dogs. I tell my guys, I want tigers. Okay. I want guys that are going to fight, that are going to blue collar guys that are going to don't go give me all that flash and crap because it don't mean anything.
I think it's so funny that, the oven mitt thing, like, I think it's crazy how, some of these kids, and they don't know how to put it on, so they take 2-3 pitches, they're still trying to wrap it. I'm like, I have a joke with my son. I said, you don't steal that many bases anyway. You don't need one.
I could tell you when I was coaching at Stepanek High School, it was funny. A kid came down first base, and he reaches in, grabs his oven mitt, starts putting it on. So I looked at him and I said, "What are you doing?" He was like, "I put my oven mitt on, coach." He said, I'm, if I don't, I could be going down to second base." And I looked at him. I said, "You've been here twice all year." I said, "Give me that damn thing." I took it and I threw it in the dugout.
And I got funny stories about oven mitts, but one that's really sad to me. The year that I was with the Mets, one of the players, Omar De Los Santos, he ended up being the MVP of the Florida State League that year that I was there. It was like he was like 3 stolen bases away from breaking the record, and somehow he got to first base and he put it on and he slid and he broke his finger. He was in the field. Like, oh my god! So at the same, every time I talk about the ultimate, that story comes back to me because I was like, okay, I understand it's protective, but it's just the funny, like behind it. How, first of all, it doesn't fit in your back pocket. Second of all, you're trying to put it in, and you don't know how to put it in, and it's just kind of like, man, like, some of these kids, man, it's just crazy how the things that are no longer the things that are value for us are just comical, right? Like, we just, we value other things,
Yeah.
and I will say this to parents out there, like, a lot of people have asked me, over the last few days, I've got more questions about it, and it's like, what would you do? What is this? Man, you got to do what's best for your kid, man. That's it. Like, you got to do what's best for your kid. If your kid needs reps, then find a team where he's going to rep. Find a team. Doesn't matter. Is it good, bad, double A, rec, whatever. Just find him a team where he's going to get reps. If he needs to play around older kids, find him a team where he's going to be older kids. Now, you do realize that it's going to cost him playing time. And you got to be okay with that. Or he has to earn it. If he needs to take time off, let him take time off. Let him take time off. Let him time to, he got to miss the game again and then give him the opportunity to go back and play. There's options out there. There's options out there. There's good teams, there's bad teams, but you got to do what's best for your parents. And I just think that everybody's trying to keep up with the Joneses. Yeah. They see what's on social media. Oh, they're doing this, so why are we not doing this? They're doing this, so why are we not doing this? Going to Cooperstown, I'm sure it's a great experience. I said, man, I don't want to. That's like $1,200 just up the bat, just so I can tell my kids to stay in a bunk. Like I was like, to me, it's like, man, like I was like, is that really a cool experience?
Well, I could tell you, okay, when my son was 12, I went to Cooperstown. Okay, so did that whole thing, right? Yeah. I would, after that time there, I swore I would never go back to that place ever again because it's a joke. Number one, it's not baseball. Okay. I don't know what the hell it is. You're playing, you're there a week, you're playing like, I forget, every day, two times a day. They're 12.
I heard like the fences are real small. So like, I'm not like, all these kids are hitting, like, and look, I just think that, and a lot of these parents that are in our age group doesn't have older boys. So usually their kids are the oldest right now. You don't realize the amount of traveling that you do once you get into high school, and that actually matters. It actually matters. Like, look, Atlanta, Jupiter in the fall. Those things are worth it. Like, I've gone to Jupiter and I've gone with Tommy Hernandez, the owner of the Dallas Tigers. And I went to Jupiter, and I never seen anything like it. Like I said, when you walk into Roger Dean, the Marlins side, and you can't get through because there's so many scouts there. Like that's worth it. But going to Cooperstown for you to hit 5 home runs in a 200-foot fence, like, come on, man. Like, come on. But here's the thing, like, you keep up with the Joneses because the family next door, they do it, right? So you feel like, oh, I got to do it. Like, no, you don't. You don't have to travel at 12. Like, you don't. You don't have to. There's enough good baseball here, And And look, there's all sorts of subjects that we can jump in to left and right and like playing up, playing down, playing the competition, playing. But bottom line is, parents got choices. You got to be willing to do what's your best for your son. Do your homework, ask questions. And ultimately, and this is one of the things that people are. I mean, you gotta start. What is the high school program looking for? What is it like? If my kid is if like look if I start going to some of this camps at the local high school, and you start noticing the trend, like, hey, we need guys that are strong, fast. Then let me guess what? Let me gear towards that. Like, hey, they want stronger kids. They want faster guys. They want guys with good arms. Um, so you have to get involved with that. And so do the high school. I think some high schools got to get more involved in what's going on in their middle schools as well.
But
I think, and I don't know how they do it in New York, but here baseball middle school is non-existent.
But you want to know something? I'll tell you this. Like in my case, both schools that I've coached high school baseball at are private schools, so we don't have a middle school that feeds us. Okay. The problem is, like you said, to get involved, I would love to get involved with the local leagues, the Cal Ripken leagues, little leagues. I do everything for free. You wouldn't have to pay me a dime. I'd come and I'd do it. Okay. The problem here is that they think that they got it under control. They don't need somebody like me to help them. And that's really frustrating.
Yeah. And it's like I told you earlier, like experience is no longer a valuable asset because I tell you, and this may sound bitter what I'm about to say. I ever since I got let go of the Mets, I had one job interview, one job with the Angels the following year, and I'm talking about college, pro job, high school, even youth. I had my first youth job 4 years later this past fall. Until then, not one. And you're wondering, like, I was like, look, and I have a clean record as far as, like criminal background. I got a clean record. Like, there's no way that a guy that went to coach for the New York Mets cannot get sent to one interview because now we want to bring in the young guy to get out of drive line and the young guy who's flashy with tech. And this is a conversation for another day, but that's what it is. Like, hey, let me bring in this younger guy that I don't have to pay him as much, that my bottom line I can keep some of the extra money in the bottom line because guess what? Like at the end of the day, I just need him to hit some ground balls, throw some BP, make sure everything's all right, ride a lineup, cool. The experience, like yourself, like you just said, is no longer an asset because they feel eventually it's going to cost me at some point. Something down the line is going to cost me, right? Because let's go back to the very first thing we said at the beginning. Everything now is monopolized. Everything's about the dollar value. And I really do hope, and I've said this plenty of times, and I've been in podcasts and I've said it plenty of times to say this. I really do hope there's a day that I no longer charge for lessons. I hope that day comes. And people will talk like, "Oh, you're lying." I am so serious. I can't wait for the day that I can no longer charge for lessons. That is like, look, like, and the day I get to that point, I'm doing extremely well. And people like you, like the program that you're fixing to open, people are gonna question it. They're gonna hate on it. They're going to ask, well, what's the angle behind this? But in reality, you're just a passionate guy who just wants to make a difference the right way. And because you're doing it the right, they're gonna like, man, there's something fishy about that. No, we're just trying to do it right. This is the way it was done.
Right.
And
But I think that once people see what we're doing, then I think it's going to take hold. And I'm going to tell you why, because you had mentioned
Absolutely.
it. You had mentioned it, and you're spot on when you say this. Players have to play with different age groups. You cannot just take 12s and put them together 13. You can't, because then there's no competition. There is no brass ring. There's no pot of gold at the rainbow. At the end of the rainbow, you're just going to move to the next age group. But if you do like what I'm doing, sixth, seventh, and eighth, and then ninth, 10th, and 11th, okay, those younger kids are going to get better because they're going to strive to be as
Oh,
good as the older guy.
oh, no question about it. I remember. So last fall, my son played as an 11-year-old. He played with 13s and he practiced with 13s and 14s. I remember the first day of practice. He got in there and we had a 14-year-old, pretty good pitcher, pretty good size. His velo was pretty good. Curveball was very above average. He saw it. My son was like, Dad, it broke this much. I was like, yeah, welcome to real baseball. It took him a while. It took him a while to get going. You could see he was sheltered. You could see he didn't want to come out of the shell. To the end of the fall, we have to put him on shore because we're like, hey, he's the only one that can make a play there. Yes, I totally agree with you with that. There's got to be levels, but like I said, it takes a guy to understand that in order to make this happen. Because you can have a great idea, but you also got to know there's going to be a period where those sixth graders are going to struggle against eighth graders,
Yeah.
and you got to be able to be there as far as physically and mentally to be ready to pick them back up because they're going to struggle.
Yeah.
They're going to struggle. They're going to go through their ups and downs, and you're going to have to be able to pick them back up. But guess what? Those factors are no longer sexy. They're no longer, well, it doesn't get clicks on Instagram. It doesn't. That conversation, and I was like, and that's the reason why it's hesitant on what people are doing. That's what guys like you, I'm extremely, and I can't wait to see it. I hope, and I bet it's going to be a tremendous success. But everybody, when you start something new, it's kind of like, well, what are we doing? And it sucks. It sucks that we are where we are right now, right? But we got to keep going, right? We got to keep trying to find ways to innovate and get better, and not only just youth, but overall.
Right. But to your point also, with the younger guys, so, sixth, seventh, and eighth graders playing, what it comes down to is instead of using that old uh, term that thing that everybody says where, well, this is travel baseball, playing time is not guaranteed. Okay. That's a ridiculous thing to say, number one. Okay. You have to educate the parents to what you just said. Okay, listen, little Johnny, he's a sixth grader. He's going to be playing with, he's going to struggle. We want him to struggle. We want him to fail so that he learns how to deal with it. And, all of the benefits that come with doing that, we have to pound the parents and make them understand that that's what baseball development is about.
I wrote today in the article that came out today. I wrote it 2 articles ago. In an article that I call the mental game. I had a series. It's called Building a Big League Hitter. I call it mental game. And the one thing that I said was, you gotta love the grind, you gotta love the pat, you gotta love the hard work, and you gotta love the 0 for 4. Because when you love the 0 for 4, you understand what the 2 for 4 actually means. Because hitting is hard, and the higher level you go, hitting's extremely harder. And pitching so much tougher. So that's why I'll tell her, like, if you don't love the 0 for 4, and look, I'm not saying you got to like, oh, yeah, I got to get 0 for 4. Yeah, great. But if you don't love that, when you have bad days, you're never going to understand what the 1 for 4 with a line drive over second base to move the ball game really means.
Yeah.
One of my good friends, his name is Tony Jaramillo. He's the hitting coach for the Los Angeles Angels A ball. coordinator at the time. He spent some time with the Mets when Andres Jimenez was there prior to the trade. And he was telling me that one time Andres Jimenez had an awful game. He went like 0 for 4 up in Binghamton. He went like 0 for 4 with like 4 strikeouts. And he came out smiling. And he was kind of concerned because, man, like 0 for 4 strikeouts. And he goes, and Andres Jimenez told him, hey, man, did you see that foul that I hit the other way? He's like, yeah. Ooh, that's what I'm talking about. And after that, he took off. But it was that moment, like, really, like, think about it. Like, the moment they got Andres Jimenez going was an 0 for 4 day, an off for a foul ball. That's what got him going. It's like, you think, like, man, come on now. So I just think that as players, we gotta love those rough days. And I told my son, like, and it's hot here in the garage. Like, it's hot, like hot. And I tell him, like, dude, you gotta love this grind right now, man. And he is he's we're working out with him. We're struggling right now to walk. He's out here, he's in good shape, but you gotta love those things, and we need more players like that. And it's gonna take let's get you out of the tournament and let's get you in a weight room. And it's just not a weight room once a week. You got to hit every day. Like during the year, like during baseball season, you got to hit every day. You can't just, I'm just going to go to lesson. I might get 10 cuts at practice. You got to hit every day. Every day you got to hit. Every day. If you don't hit every day during baseball season, you're going to be off. I promise. It's just off. But it's just keep you relevant, and learning a routine, and learning how to maintain your approach, mental discipline, those things. It's like people talk about mental toughness. Like in mental toughness, just like it just pops in your head, like, oh, look, I'm mental tough. Man, it comes at home. It starts at home, man. It starts at home. If you're not strong enough to make your bed every day, or do the dishes, or do your homework, don't expect to have mental toughness when you go 0 for 4. You're not. Like, you're not.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's something that, again, we could go back to travel ball coaches. Nobody teaches the mental side of the game. They don't know how. They don't know what it is. They don't know, and again, I'm not talking about everybody. Most of them don't know.
Jimmy, why why do you think not? Because they know the mental game part of it. Why not? Why don't you think why not? What if somebody were to ask you the same question, what would be your response? And then I'll share you my thought about that.
You mean why don't people teach the mental side? My feeling is that they don't know how to teach it. They don't understand that it's just like taking reps fielding ground balls. Okay, you're going to take reps fielding ground balls. Yeah, we all understand that that's how you work with baseball players. But are you taking reps with your breathing? Are you taking reps with? I'll give you a perfect example this year, and it made a big difference. And Victor, it's the simplest thing in the world. When a batter had 2 strikes on him, they had to look down at me at third base, and they had to tap the top of their helmet, and I tapped the top of mine. Very simple, just to remind them, 2-strike approach, let's go. We were one of the best 2-strike hitting teams in the section. Simple thing. But go ahead, that's what I think. I don't think they just don't know how to teach it.
My response to that is this. We are in a new era in which information needs to be delivered yesterday. Therefore, it's not that they can't teach it. I don't know how to put it in a formula and make it sound smart.
Okay. I'll buy that.
Because you can't put the breathing in a formula. Hey, if you breathe this amount of times per minute, this is going to get your heart rate in the right way, and that's going to slow down your eyes, and you're going to be able to recognize fastball 32% of the time. Therefore, you're going to make a better decision. Therefore, you're going to be able to have a higher batting average. Therefore, your WAR is going to be higher. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't. So we no longer have the human element no more, because this younger coaches that you got out of school or got out of pro ball, they don't have that either. So they're just getting go with like, hey, my hitting coach never talked to me. I had a guy, he went to the what's the young, is it the Frontier League, the youth, the younger independent ball, the Frontier League. I
Yes,
think.
Frontier League. Yep.
Yeah, Frontier League. He came. He lives here now. Um, he was getting ready here, and we worked with him a few times prior for him leaving. And we were talking about the lower half. We were talking about understanding the lower half and how to have better control. And I start tidying the breathing and what the breathing does. He told me he spent 8 years in the mine. He said not once have I ever been taught that.
Wow.
And I was like,
Wow.
so the new generation of coaches are going based on what they've done, right? Like we are at the center of our parents, right? So we try our best to familiarize the same way your parents are. You try to raise your kids the same way, and that's what's really happening. I think that the circle back with some of those people that got out of pro ball and no longer need the human element, because if there's a trackman or there's a rapsodo, I don't have to see you. I can just look at the computer and pretend that you are a computer and you no longer have feelings. And look, and understand, MLB, and minor league baseball. That's where they are right now. This is their thing, and look, and this is where they are. But the youth hasn't got to that point. You need the human element. You need to know how to interact with your kid at the youth, high school, and even some of these younger colleges, because not all colleges have trackmen. Not all colleges can afford a hit track. So there's a human element that goes to it, but because you don't know how, so then people get lost. And then people are like, well, man, like he doesn't talk to my kid. Well, man, he probably didn't talk to him either. So, I share this story all the time, and I share it plenty of times. I was in a podcast last week, and I share it. And it's no shot at those guys, because I love those guys. I still talk to them on a regular basis. We had a guy. We were playing Tampa, the Yankees, the Tarpoons, and there was a guy who just came up from rookie ball that same day. I don't know. I want to say we were at home, so either he came late or whatever. And I remember that he was warming up. They brought him in, and our analyst is inside the dugout, desperate. And I'm like, and I looked at him, and I'm like, what are you doing? And it's like, I can't find no information on the guy. And I'm like, well, you can just turn around and look at him in the mouth. It's like, so there's no awareness of how he's body. There's no awareness of how he looks. That doesn't have to happen anymore, because the iPad can tell it all, and we're just racing robots. And you've been long enough, and I don't know, you and I have spoken twice, so I don't know what your expertise is in terms of hitting for. You can be a good manager, a good pitching coach, a good hitting coach. But when it comes to hitting, it's all about rhythm. It's all about timing. It's all about feel. It's all about understanding confidence at the box. And to me, if you don't have good rhythm at the plate, you're thinking. You have no confidence. Your thoughts are going a million miles an hour. So it's just that human element is. But you can't talk about rhythm, because there's no way that I can provide an evidence in which my rhythm equals to success.
Because it's different for everybody. Your rhythm is not the same as mine.
Yes.
It's different feel. Okay. What your feel is different than mine. Right.
Yes. Somebody one time told me, like, we had a lesson last week. Somebody told me, and all we discussed was rhythm. His swing was good. He didn't have a rhythm, so he looked like a robot. Hey, let's just add a little rhythm, a little flow.
Yeah.
And he started just generating power and simplifying. His swing just start getting better. And his response, is that it? Yeah. What do you want me to add to it? That's it. That's what you needed. And I'm not saying that everybody needs a rhythm, and everybody needs a rhythm, obviously, but we're the simple Like what we talked about, the simple no longer is sexy for us. Like simple is the ultimate sophistication, and we're no longer in the need for that. Like it's not like, man, simple. Like, nah, man, like let's make it harder. Like let's make it harder for ourselves. When Jimmy, you and I both know, man, like how hard do you think it's to hit with the game on the line? You know, it's just it's hitting is hard. Hitting's extremely hard, and the big leaguers like I give that's why I give like Freddie Freeman so much credit. Like think about it, he used to shift to him so much right to the pull side, and he was still finding ways to pull the ball and still get on base. You're like, that's just not human. That's not human, man. That's hitting right there, man.
Yeah.
And yeah, and look, like you said, like all these things all tied up together, and ultimately we want we want to we want to empower kids. Like what's youth based? Like we want to empower kids so they can be their own coaches and they can maintain confidence when they're down. When they're down, like when they're 0 for 10, can they maintain the same confidence? I share that with all my kids all the time. Confidence is kind of like your shield, right? Like think about right now. Everybody says right now strikeouts is no longer like, oh, it's okay to strike out. It equals the same as a pop. Okay. Yeah. In numbers, yeah, it makes sense. But that first strikeout takes a piece of that shield. And so does the second strikeout. And the third. And the fourth. And all of a sudden you're down. You're 0 for 12, 0 for 13 with 9 strikeouts. And you just lost your shield. So you no longer have confidence. So you're stepping to the box searching for an answer that you had it based on because it was okay to strike out. Nah.
Right. Nah. Plus, the other thing too with strikeouts, which kills me is, strikeout is like you're not putting pressure on anybody. Put the ball in play. Make them make a play, okay? And if you go 0 for whatever, in that situation, I'm going to be a lot happier because you're putting pressure on them. You're making them make a play. You strike out. They don't have to do anything.
Yes. And it's the same as pitching, and not, and this is another thing about youth baseball or youth sports I'm not going to get in there because I don't really know. But youth baseball, you had a former pitcher giving hitting lessons. And you have it. And you have former hitters giving pitching lessons or catching lessons. And I'm like, I was like, and I'm telling you right now, I've gotten calls from parents that have decided not to come see me as a hitting coach because I don't get pitching lessons. And I was like, what? I was like, no, well, we decided, like, just, it's like, hey, like, he's able to give us an package. So okay. So you don't really care about getting better. You just care about the convenience, and you care about keeping up with the Joneses because little Johnny's taking lessons. So let me take my Johnny to take lessons too. So it's just a circle. It's just educating. I hope people go in and read the one that I posted today. I talked about, and we talked about it yesterday about, maybe organizations got to go up to maybe a 2 calendar full year of commitment, not just, not even one. I think we got to start eliminating roster, guest playing. I think that I think tournament directors can freeze roster at a certain date, like it used to be in the past. There's all sorts of ways that you can do it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, once again, if I eliminate guest playing, then some of these teams may not come. Therefore, I'm not going to have as many teams in the tournament. Therefore, my bottom line is not going to be as high. Yeah, maybe not. Yeah. So who's going to take the first punch? And it gets messy. I understand it's going to get messy, but who's going to be willing to do that for the sake of how do I make this game better?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I was going to say, because we got to wrap this up. And I was going to say to you, what's your opinion? Again, I'm taking this from your article. Tell us what people should do to put their kid in the best position to succeed.
I think the best thing that they can do is do your homework. Do your homework. Um, be realistic of who you are. Be realistic of what your kid is. Um, all sorts of things come into place. Finances come into place. Like for example, like I know, like there's a team out here locally close to my house. They travel every other week. They travel, and when I mean they travel, I mean they travel out of the city. Alabama, Atlanta, Mississippi, Tennessee, blah blah. I can't do it. I don't care if you offer me my son can play starting shortstop and bat third. I can't do it. I can't. I'll have to do fundraisers. I have to sell popcorn all year long. And do fundraisers all year long just to pay for it.
Yeah.
But like I said earlier, you got to make the best decision for your kid. So it's like do your homework. Uh, and set realistic expectations. Like there's no way that as a parent you don't know whether your kid is good or not. Like, come on, like you can tell. Like, hey, my kid's an average player, so hey, I don't need to be looking for something more than someone where he's gonna be related. And enjoy it. Like it just is. I I'm a realistic person. I like look. I think my son's a tremendous player. I was like, is he top? No, my son's average speed, and he just came out of a knee injury, so his speed is coming back. But I can't expect him to be a leadoff or be in a on a go into a perfect game with average speed for what? He ain't got no business being out there. So I just think that you got to be diligent on doing your homework and knowing what it means, and get educated. Ask questions. There's all sorts of information for everybody. And 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 if you do make a decision, hold coaches and organizations accountable to what they're trying to do. Like you want to get my kid better, so hold accountable because the way I can hold you accountable is like I don't have to hold you accountable about my kids' playing time, but I can hold you accountable to how you go about your work ethic.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, Victor, this has been a great conversation. Why don't you, before we sign off here, tell everybody how they could reach out to you, social media, how they can get to you.
Well, I mean, they can reach out to me via Instagram. My it's Swing Design, and Instagram Swing Design. Obviously, I'm on Facebook under Victor Burgos. If they have any questions, also on LinkedIn. Um, I rarely ever look at my email, so I will not share that because I will never respond back to you. But yeah, if they have any questions, they're more than welcome. And I do encourage everybody, and it's just, have an opportunity. If you have an opportunity to have seen the article, please take a look at it. But not only that, like take a look at the whole article. There's so much good information. There's a lot there's a lot that gone through that, a lot of thoughts, a lot of people, ultimately, yeah, I do write them, but there's a lot of opinions from different guys that we came up with this, and I really do hope that we're here to help people out when it comes to hitting and just overall the game of baseball.
That's fantastic. Well, look, I can't thank you enough for writing that article because I feel that article is bringing awareness to these issues. And, the first step in finding a solution is making everybody aware of it. So thank you again, Victor. This was a pleasure. And, we'll stay in touch.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Have a good night.
You too.
So the first thing you have to do is you have to go to medium.com and look up Victor Burgos. Victor wrote about, 20 or so articles that will definitely help you understand how true development takes place in baseball. Now, again, this is not coming from somebody that just fell off the back of a truck. Victor was a hitting instructor for the New York Mets, so I'm sure he knows what he's talking about. You know, we covered a lot of things like we usually do. Look, I hope everybody got something out of it, because I did, and I know that all of the things that we spoke about were really important. So get out there, look up Victor, read his articles, follow him on Facebook, just a lot of good stuff. So, if you enjoyed today's show, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Visit the website at thectbshow.net. Listen to your favorite episodes, and please leave us a review. You can also reach out to the show on social media, X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and get this, the old man has finally got us on TikTok. Keeps me young. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover, please drop us an email at clearingthebases@gmail.com. Your feedback helps us bring you the best content and reach more people in the baseball community just like you. And also, let me know if you'd like to be a guest. Until then, coaches and players, keep practicing, stay positive, and remember, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you on the next one.